Thanks for staying with us. Let's go to this conversation now. South Africa heading to the polls on May 29th this year. Now, a lot of work lies ahead for the Independent Electoral Commission as well as political parties who are working towards this particular date. Now, the proclamation of the election date has certain legal consequences for the electoral process as well. And let's try to take you step by step through some of these as we speak now to IEC Deputy Electoral Officer Mawethu Mosery. Mr. Mosery, thank you so much for your time this evening. One of the legal implications is that the voters' roll has now been closed, and someone is watching tonight and says, but what does it mean for me if I still want to change my details and my address? What happens then?
Good evening. Indeed, the voters' roll has closed. It closed on Friday, the 23rd of February. And on Saturday, the 24th, we also issued the election timetable, which means now we have a legal time frame that takes us to the 29th of May. Now, if you are a voter and you didn't change your particulars, you are on the voters' roll. You can now use the provision that is there in the timetable, which is normally called Section 24A, but what it means, you will give us notice as the Commission that you will vote elsewhere, other than where your name appears on the voters' roll. And we have a date by which you must do so, which is the 17th of May. So all of those who say my address places me elsewhere, but I will be somewhere else, they now have to give us that notice by the 17th of May, and we will be able to allow them to vote to a place where they will be. But what they must keep in mind is that if you're voting within your province, you will get all your 3 ballots. But if you are voting outside of the province where you are registered, you will only get 1 ballot, which is the national compensatory ballot, which is the only ballot that you are able to get anywhere in the country as a voter. So they need to keep that in mind.
So
if
now,
you miss being on the voters' roll, you just took off late to register, you now have missed this election. You have to prepare yourself for the next election, which is not too far in 2026.
So someone is then saying, okay, you say that I must now bring a notice. What needs to be contained in this particular notice? Do I just show up at your offices and say, this is my notice? Can I do it online? How does it work?
You can do it at our offices if you so wish, and we will be also indicating if we have a digital platform at which you could do this notice. All you have to do, give us in the notice is your ID, where you are registered, and more importantly, where you will be casting your vote, because you can only go to that station where you say you will be. You can't go anywhere else. Yeah. And that's the limitation we have with this provision.
So does it work the same way then? Let's say you are now publishing the provisional voters' roll and someone has some concerns in that particular regard. How then do they, unfold? How does the process unfold then if someone raises concerns about what they're seeing next to their names in the provisional voters' roll?
Today, Monday, or 26 February, we actually published the voters' roll for viewing, and we are encouraging all citizens to go view the voters' roll. It's available at our offices, and we've ensured that we protect voter information and details like those, so you can go view your status on the roll. If you find something incorrect on the voters' roll about your name, then you must raise an objection. The objection that the Commission is considering now is whether we should include you on the voters' roll or we excluded you from the voters' roll, and you will provide sufficient evidence that we've excluded you. But if we've included you in an incorrect place, this is the time to do so. Submit an objection, and the commission will consider your objection. And by the 12th of March, we would have decided on your objection. And if we agree with you, we will move your name to the correct segment of the voters' roll. So we would be encouraging voters, political parties, to use the time that we have from today until the 10th of March to do those objections.
So when do we get to see the list as well of, a provisional list that is of those who will be taking part in this election in terms of the candidates and the political parties?
We have now opened candidate nomination, and candidate nomination will continue until the 8th of March. So we would say to yourselves as well as the citizens, we will know beyond the 8th of March those who have successfully submitted their requirements to contest this election. Beyond that, the actual names will be published around the 20th of March after we've dealt with all compliance requirements and have dealt with those who appear twice on the list of political parties. Twice, I mean you have been nominated by two different political parties, which is not allowed. So we will allow political parties to ratify that, and only when we've concluded that, we will publish the list of those successfully nominated.
As a final question, then, you're contending with young people. I was speaking to an analyst earlier on here on the show who was saying that you're contending with a number of them who say that they don't want to be, queuing and all of that. And you also are now tasked with making sure that a lot of them do go and vote as well, because voter education is going to be quite critical in that regard. How do you make sure that those who would have registered, who are young people, actually do go to these, VDs and be able then to make their marks?
Well, we will do a number of activities to encourage young voters who are on the voters' roll to actually come out and vote on the election day. But the history that we have with first-time voters is a good story or a good behavior on their part, because almost 75 to 80% of them do come out and vote on their first election. So we are working with that background, but we will continue with campaigns to encourage young people to come out and vote on election day.
All right, let me thank you so much for your time. And of course, I think you have heard a lot of what you can do then. The provisional voters roll is out. Have a look at it, see if your details are correct. You still have time to also be able to, state your case if there's something that is amiss and you do not want to miss this deadline. But of course, all this important information, as you've heard tonight, do take it to heart. That was the IEC's Deputy Electoral Officer, Mawethu Mosery, just painting a picture for us of what happens now in terms of the process. Because once the voters' roll is closed, there are quite a lot of legal implications, and as well as the proclamation has now been made. So there's so many legal implications of this particular process, and I do hope that also helped you somewhat.